Hey everybody, it's Chris Reacts. Let's see why the most famous podcaster in the world doesn't believe in God. This is about Joe Rogan. I don't know if he would say he doesn't believe in God or not. This clip we're going to watch today is called Joe Rogan on why he doesn't believe in God, but he didn't make that clip. Another person made this channel up. So let's just watch the content. But I am interested. What makes people believe or not believe? What does belief mean to them? What influences people to have the stance that they have? What's behind that stance? Okay, here we go.
Even if the concepts of Christianity or Judaism, even if they're like they're real, that's what God really wants, there's no way you know whoever wrote that, like what they wrote. There's no way. This is human beings.
Okay, so we're talking about the Bible, and he's saying, look, even if God is like that, you don't know that that's how it got written by the people. Okay, so the Bible is just somebody sitting down at some point writing something. So he's doubting that God would ever work through a person. He says it's human beings. Like, it can't be God, it's human beings. I guess, like, you'd be looking for God to write by magic on something. Okay, sorry. I'll give you some time.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Catholic school my whole life, and I just never believed any of that stuff.
I believed in it till I was 6.
Yeah,
in
okay,
first
6.
grade. I had one teacher.
Okay, I'm intrigued. She went to Catholic school. These Catholics built this whole school up, and they thought if we send our children through this school, it will turn them into Catholics. Never believed it. Never believed any of it. He did, and he's going to tell us what made him change as a, what did he say, 6-year-old? Okay, why do people have objections to God? He was initially saying it's not credible that human beings would have written the Bible. Is he going to say that he learned something that was so logically incoherent that he knew? What are you going to learn at 5? Okay, here we go. I love this.
Sister Mary Josephine, she was such a
I bet.
She was so mean. She was so mean that I knew as a little boy that, like, there's no way this could be connected to God.
That's how. She was so mean that I knew there's no way this could be connected to God. My man Swedenborg is talking nonstop, which is, by the way, the reason, well, maybe not the only reason, but the reason I would point to as to why I do believe in God is what Swedenborg wrote. I think that it seems very much like God was not writing directly through him, but like showing him so much that he could give a pretty good representation of how things really are. And Swedenborg is going crazy about, he is adamant about, God is love. A lot of people say that. God is love, and you can't actually know truth about God does anything without love. It's all about love. Actually, God is goodness itself, which is a funny thing to say because you see goodness happen, like somebody helps somebody. Oh, there's goodness. You feel some love. There's goodness. All of that is actually God. You're seeing God in that. And for him to say, you know how I knew that this wasn't connected to God? Because she was so mean. There's no pressure on Joe Rogan to be into God or not be into God. I think he's got pretty free to speak his own opinion, and we just got to listen to it. He says, it's so mean that I know it's not connected to God. I think there's something instinctive in the human heart that says God is goodness.
I was
They're
like, this
mean.
This is an evil lady who would threaten you. If you didn't do something, you were going to have to sleep on a nail in the closet. You'd have to stay home. You're never going to get to see your parents again. She would yell stuff like that. It was like she was evil. She tortured kids.
Can you imagine that existing today?
Oh, my God. It probably does. It probably does in some very unusual religious circumstances.
Because religion can create these bubbles. There's not enough checks and balances on the authority, and so situations like this happen. I bet it happens outside religion too. But I think what we're getting at here is, I said Swedenborg was adamant about how God is love. More so, maybe even, Swedenborg asserted that the thing that killed Christianity is the separation of faith from love. Faith separated from love is the most serious thing that can go wrong with religion. When you have these ideas and you're talking about, look, I'm into God, I know about God, I read the texts, and I have this institution in a church, and yet you don't act with love. Well, he said she was evil, she was doing all these things. Look at the downstream effects of that. These people don't think that, certainly not that Catholicism is real, but they don't think Christianity is real, maybe not. God is real, because that's so destructive. It would be one thing if you weren't saying you are a spokesperson for God and you did those same evil things. It would be bad. It's worse when you say that you are, because not only do you do the harm that you do, but you also destroy people's belief in God. You destroy people's ability to connect with God through any kind of religious stuff. To Swedenborg, public enemy number 1 was faith separated from love. And here you're seeing what that does. And people are so abhorred by it. Okay, let's see where it goes from here.
just a possibility that someone like that exists.
Yeah.
Because everyone was nice to me. I was 5, 6 years old, whatever I was. My parents were nice to me. My grandparents were nice to me. Everyone was nice to me.
Except this
And
lady.
then all of a sudden I'm in this room with this lady who is representing God. And she's f***ing evil. She's mean. She wants you to cry.
That's sad. I feel sorry for little 5-year-old Joe Rogan. And that's actually pretty well said. This lady who's representing God is the first mean person you encountered. It's sad.
It was weird because it was like a really good thing. It was like a really good thing because when I was like 5 years old, my parents were breaking up. And I was like, you know, when you're young and you're insecure, you're like, oh my God, like there's no stability in the world. And I started thinking about God and I started like really getting into God. It's like a 5-year-old.
That's crazy.
It was, it was like I was looking for someone
But
to.
it makes sense.
Yeah, you're looking for someone to look after you. Someone who makes sense of this.
Sure.
Because if like the parents in your life, if the chaos in your life, you're like, there's got to be something. Maybe it's God. And then going to that church and going to that Catholic school, I was like, okay, maybe it's God, but these people, this lady is not doing the work of God.
Yeah, that poor little kid going through his parents are breaking up and he feels like I need some stability. Is someone taking care of me? Maybe it's God. That little 5-year-old mind is opening up to the possibility of God, gets squashed by faith separated from love. And he's saying that totally redirected him. And maybe because I think God is real and God is out there. And if he hadn't had that, maybe he would have found comfort and stability and an awareness of the existence of God if it hadn't been for that. It's just, man, the damage does a lot of damage.
Like, there's no way God knows about this. There's no way God's
he's
cool
letting
with
it slide.
this. There's no way God's like, she's ultimately, unless it's to be so mean that you make people think for themselves.
Yeah.
There's no way God is cool with this. It's like anybody would have the idea that if there is a God, he must be this kind of way. There's no way he can be like this because there's an instinctive picture of how God actually is in human minds. Swedenborg says it flows into you from heaven. There's a human God, and that God has a certain kind of love and wisdom. And it's interesting that he says the only way God would allow this is for people to think for themselves. I would say probably. I mean, providence is looking for you to be able to operate in freedom. Actually, religious beliefs that you have forced onto you don't do anything. That could be something good that providence is bringing out of the situation. But it's just funny that he would also attribute that to God. You know what God might want to do is people to think for themselves. I don't know. I think like, yeah, you got some sense. Your sense of what God would and wouldn't do seems similar to mine. What's the opposite of God? Meanness. And what's the very opposite of God? Meanness while you're claiming that you're a representative of God. That there's something that recoils in the human heart from that. I think it's because we all have a sense of who God actually is. You can tell God is love and wisdom. This is the problem. Religion does a lot of good, but I would think religious people, I would count myself as a religious person. We gotta like be really careful of this. I think there's a good reason why Swedenborg was so aggressively anti-faith alone. You can be these Catholic people, put up this whole school here, put all that money into it, and if you have someone in there who's mean, wrecks it. The first work of any religion is look inside yourself, recognize your own evils, ask God, can you get those out of me? If every religious person did that, nobody would have to have that kind of experience where religion was the reason. You don't want that to be why people don't believe in God. You can have people don't believe in God because they want to do things that are harmful and they know God wouldn't be cool with that. Okay, if someone's got to not believe in God, let's have it be that. Let's not have it be people who are looking for God honestly as a child and got slammed by this faith without love kind of stuff. That's the react. Thanks, dudes.